Good afternoon, Reverend Barnes. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Den.
Thank you. It is an honor to
Oh,
be here. Please know that.
I love your enthusiasm. Your spirit, your energy is just always so positive. You're just instantly one of those people who I just feel better being around you.
Very
So
kind.
thank you for that as well. So I just thought it might be good with the upcoming commencement. You've agreed to be our speaker. We're so excited about that. And so, in reading and looking at your bio for that, I've known you now. I've worked at Wilson for 8 years. And so, in various capacities, I've seen the things that you do and what a servant's heart you have and how committed you are to education. But I had no idea that you have such an extensive background and very varied. So, you were a WCC graduate, and that was back when we were still Wilson County Technical Institute.
Absolutely.
So we're your alma mater.
Yes.
And how cool is that you get to come back and
there
speak
are
to
no
us?
words. When I think back on that time in my life, in my journey, and I returned to Wilson after attempting to go a couple of places, college-wise, and the road led back to Wilson. And together with the fact that my adopted parents were going through some health challenges. And so still the passionate desire to obtain, my higher ed, if you will. And so Wilson County Technical Institute became the place that I landed. And the thing about it, I gotta say this, the thing about it is that the possibilities here allowed me as a student to not only attend class, but to the flexibility of taking care of my parents as well. There are no words to describe that. And the atmosphere, this was the place and I'm grateful that I got my start. My foundation was affirmed in terms of my educational journey.
Love to hear that. I love to hear, again, never get tired of hearing from how the college and what we do has impacted people in positive ways. And that foundation then led you to go on and further your education and pursue degrees from Shaw University and Duke University. And I also saw that you were formerly a counselor and student activities director here at the college, which if I knew that, I forgot, but that is so cool. I said, no wonder we always vibe like, yes, your student development, you get it. So that was very cool. And you did that, I believe, for 7 years.
Yes, I did for 7 years. Upon completing my studies at the Divinity School, and interesting enough, it was my desire upon completing studies at Duke, I wanted to be a diplomat. And so I had my sights set on going either working for the UN, going to DC or something of that nature. But those plans didn't quite come together. And so the door was open to return to Wilson, and there was an opening here. And so I applied, and it was amazing how quickly everything fell into place. And so I became counselor, one of the 4 counselors, and director of student activities. And so interacting with students that were in the trades programs, if you will, provided me an opportunity to engage with students who were trying to find their way. And I say that with all due respect, because the students I would interact with, they had skills. Perhaps they were not as studious in some of their classes, but they possess the interest and the willingness to use their hands as well as their minds. And again, the trades programs, and for far too many people did not appreciate students who were plumbers, who were electricians, who were cosmetologists. And so it gave me an opportunity to encourage those students to keep climbing. Yes, even if it's a certificate, go for it.
Yeah.
If it's, your 2-year degree, go for it, if you will. And then, of course, the interactions that I had with students as a student activities director, we traveled. And I gotta tell you, driving the van. Oh my goodness.
Ooh,
driving the van
yes.
from one event to another.
Yes.
And,
adventures.
You know, right?
I do know.
You know
I do
that.
know.
Adventures, to say the least. But it provided students an opportunity to, experience some things that they would not have perhaps had experienced. And we had a variety of programs here on campus. We had programs during African American History Month. And we did all kinds of programs that would invite professionals back to the campus for career fairs and various kinds of things to expose the students to the possibilities that their education here would provide them. Real kinds of experiences, in the world, in the real world.
Absolutely. No, for sure. It's interesting. I'm thinking as you're saying all that, how much those things remain true. We, of course, have our TRIO Student Support Services program here that is dedicated to helping students finish a 2-year degree and transfer to going on. And they've had their recognition ceremonies and events these past couple of weeks. And it's the same thing I'm hearing from that team is seeing the pictures of all the places that these students get to go and experiences that they've had for the very first time, and being alongside them when they do that. There's nothing else quite like that.
Yes.
When you can really see someone looking at the world in a way that they had not previously. There's something very powerful about that.
Very
and
powerful.
Definitely, all these years later, I still hear
Yes.
that passion and enthusiasm for that in your heart. So
yes, and the opportunity for those students, as you said, to see the world and see themselves
yes.
in a different vantage point.
Yes.
And the possibilities are limitless.
Yeah.
That once they get that exposure, it shifts everything they think about themselves and even their personal journey.
Absolutely.
Because many of the students that, attend community college come from some challenging situations,
Yes.
if you will, to say the least.
Yes.
And then sort of things settling for them. And then having those experiences, it just changes the trajectory of their life stories.
Absolutely, it does. And again, just hearing you talk about it, it does, renew again the everyday what we hope to do and accomplish when we show up here. And that's not, that comes with challenges. That's not always an easy thing too.
Yes.
But that's for sure one of the reasons that when we discussed having you to be a speaker, that yes, you have that outlook. And you one of the favorite quotes I had that was from your bio. You said, I'm a firm believer that we have all been gifted with graces and abilities to make the world a better place than when we first arrived.
Absolutely.
I love that so much.
Absolutely.
And that is such a perfect message for all of us, but especially our graduates who are now positioned to go out into the world and to have that impact in multiple ways. And especially when there's so many things that are happening that are outside of our control, just in the world, in life in general. That is such a good reminder to me. We can control what we do ourselves, and that we can be intentional about using the talents and the gifts that we've each been given individually in whatever way that is presented.
Absolutely. And I would underscore the point that you raised. And these graduates, as they launch out, I want to say to them, be prepared that life will come at you in ways you had not planned. But the foundation and the fact that you have purpose and you possess gifts that you don't know you possess. You possess them and you don't know you have them. But life will call upon you to tap into some things. And as a result of that, they venture down paths that when they look around, how did I get here? Kind of situation. And it, in my humble opinion, it is always for the better. And I understand as graduates that they plan to do, I'm going to be here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Sorry, hate to disappoint you. There's a possibility now that you might get redirected.
That you won't be an ambassador, that you may wind up working at a community college.
But understand, and I say this, not just as a person of the faith, and but life has a way of ordering our steps in ways that we could not have imagined. And it is only in retrospect, when we look back, then we can say, oh, now I see why I had to travel this way.
Yes.
And that is affirming.
Yes.
And that is a part of the message that I want to try to convey to students.
Yes. Well, I certainly cannot think of a better person to do it. And again, it is such an important reminder that certainly we all need that uplifting and that reminding. And I absolutely agree with you. I always say I feel like we all wind up where we're assigned to be for whatever time we are assigned to be there. And what we do during that time and with that assignment is completely up to us.
Absolutely.
And again, that is not to say that there would not be hardship and adversity and really difficult things to overcome. But I think we need to hear voices like yours to say, that is just a part of life. That is what happens. And the best way to prepare for that is just to know and to keep, again, doing what's within your power
to do. And the thing, if I could just add one comment to what you said, that I had come to believe that whatever challenges life may offer me is never just for me. I'm grateful for that, because as a result of enduring whatever challenging moment, without doubt, without a question, someone will be led across my path. And then I can tell them, let me tell you about experience, so forth and so on, that I've had, to encourage them that, it may look dark right now, it may look impossible right now, but let me tell you from my experience and how affirming that can be. So I embrace that. It does not feel good. It is not, necessarily something that, I want to say, I bring this on. No, of course not. But I come to understand in the process that someone else will benefit as a result of the challenge that I was able to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. That's again, that's very profound, because I think it's so easy. Naturally, we tend to just say, whatever is happening, if it is bad, then how it's affecting me, how bad or awful that feels for me, or how, much I have to struggle to get through whatever's happening. But that's another, sometimes you can't see that until you're on the other side of it. But acknowledging that, yes, that's a role that you played in some way, shape, or form for someone else. That's a very, very, very deep concept.
Yeah. Just grateful.
Yes,
yeah. Just
absolutely. Grateful. Absolutely. Well, when you're talking about just from your experiences, I was so interested in the varied range of things that you've done. I had no idea that you were such an international, accomplished world traveler.
Wow.
You've been to Jordan, tell me the other
Jordan,
countries.
Iraq, Egypt, Syria, Damascus, Greece, South Africa. And initially, the bulk of those experiences happened during my time at Duke Divinity School. And knowing, selecting to go to Duke, knowing that there were so many opportunities and possibilities. And a real short story in my ethics class, how I ended up in Iraq and Jordan. We had a presentation in my Christian ethics class from a person that was associated with a Fellowship of Reconciliation in Nyack, New York. And FOR was engaged in work there across not just in that particular part of the world, but in places where there are conflicts. And so we were in our Christian ethics classes. There was a presentation, and FR says we're going to send some students to Iraq and Jordan to take medicine to the Red Crescent Society. And keep in mind, during that period, we were on the verge of that first Gulf crisis. You remember? And so, fast forward through the story, I said, this is something I'm interested in. I came back to also had to raise money, and people were very supportive. And so we went to Iraq. And so when I look at that crisis now, there's a flood of emotions because going to refugee camps and seeing how people had to live in that period, it was heart-wrenching. And so to put it, to tie it in, the fact that seeing the world from a different perspective changes. 100%. It gives you an opportunity, particularly as Americans, to say we ought not to take what we have forever for granted. We have a responsibility to do right by people, if you will. And so having those opportunities to travel, to go to all different kinds of locations, again, it goes back to a part of my foundation here, growing up in this little hamlet called Wilson, and that I had people who impacted my life and spoke into and did things to affirm who I was, so that as opportunities would present themselves, I would not feel, why am I? No, that is what I'm supposed to do. That is what I'm supposed to do because of all that has been poured into me. So whether it was Iraq, whether it was Mexico, didn't matter. You go and give all that you possibly can to make a difference.
Absolutely. And once you've had that experience and seen that, it gives you such a perspective to say, and I say this for myself, that okay, getting the wrong coffee order is not the most awful thing that could happen. And that's an extreme example. But again, when you see people that are living in such extreme poverty and, in such conditions that we really truly can't imagine, then it does make you much more grateful and appreciative for all the things that we do take for granted. Conveniences and then the support role. I hear you very much saying that you feel like people in this community, in your circle, they invested in you.
Oh my God.
And I wonder now, did that contribute to your starting the foundation, your educational foundation?
Without question, Amy, without question. I was fortunate to have both my adopted and biological parents. And so as an adopted only child, that experience with my adopted parents, and the way I describe it, I say my biological parents gave me life, and my adopted parents taught me how to live.
That's powerful.
When I think about it, when I was walking, in the backyard, and one morning, and I thought about how can I do something to say thank you, and for all that I had been invested, and so maybe I'll give some money to some organization. And to narrow the story down, it was just so impressed upon me. Create a foundation. Name it for both of them, all four of them. All four of them, not just the two here, there, but all four. And honor what they poured into your life. Amy, there are no words. There are no words. And so to have that foundation and create those scholarships and endowments that once that those funds are fully endowed, that those scholarships will continue on. And I say this, long when my voice falls silent, someone will be benefiting from my family's legacy. Not me, but for what they instilled in me during a time that was a difficult, challenging, trying, and all the rest when it came to education. And just in various ways, they showed and demonstrated that you have a responsibility. Don't dare think that because you have this, that, or the other, that you can just kind of do whatever. No, 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 no. They didn't tell me to go create a foundation, but it became clear to me that this would be something that they would be proud of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a beautiful legacy, and such it ties so perfectly. Like that explanation is just everything. Again, I think that definitely drives you and makes you committed to help and serve others in advancement. And I just think, yes, they would be so proud that lives on. And again, as you said, we'll continue on and keep going. And it was interesting. That's another thing we had in common. I did not realize I am also an adopted only child.
Yes, wow.
So we're really not the spoiled, self-centered.
I know that. We get
right?
made out to be.
We get a bad rap.
We get a bad rap. We get a bad rap.
But we have good hearts.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
that's
yes,
right.
Yes,
We're willing to give
I
and
thought
share.
that was very good.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Well, I could talk to you all day, literally. I could talk to you all day, every day on the regular, because every interaction I have with you, I go away from feeling uplifted or energized in some way, and that is an amazing gift. And the fact that you were willing to share it and give of it so freely is all the more reason that we wanted you to bring that message and share that with our graduates as they go forward, and
Thank you.
them to consider. So
Thank you.
really, truly appreciate you.
Yes.
Not only what you do, just who you are,
Yes.
and everything that you are a part of.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, last little thing to wrap up. So a fun thing.
Okay.
So no right or wrong.
Okay.
Just some fun questions to give our listeners an idea of your preferences, your personality.
Yes.
Okay, here goes. Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Mountains. Mountains. Any reason in particular? I'm just curious.
The mountains, because as adopted only children, you could witness to the fact, attest to the fact that we spend a lot of time by ourselves, right?
Yes.
And the time by ourselves, for me, the time by myself, has been, in quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about the mountains. There's something about the mountains. And being in that, going to that place, and there's a stillness about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me is a place that everything kind of figuratively stops.
Yeah.
And I can hear in a way, in a way unlike any other time, any other place I am. Because I have come to believe that for me, that God speaks to me, and speaks quite frankly to all of us, but particularly for me, when it is most quiet.
Yeah.
And I say, God never speaks as loud as he does when it's in silence.
Very true. All right, next one. Books or movies?
Books.
Books. All right, indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
Back
Yes.
to your love of that, being in nature and just experiencing. Yes. Very, very cool. All right, morning or nighttime? You a morning person or night person? Morning.
Yeah.
First part of the day.
First part of the day.
Yeah.
First part of the day.
Yep.
Yes.
I get it. Okay, and then lastly, the most important one, the one that's been the most controversial so far, not really, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate. Love.
So yes, that's so interesting. That's why we hang up on that question, because we've been, I think, 3 that were vanilla. And I'm
really?
like, what's that about?
No, dark chocolate. Let me specify.
I love all variations,
Yeah.
forms. Yes,
Yes,
I'm with you on that. So, Well, thank you for indulging that little fun exercise. And
Thank you.
again, just appreciate you and all you're doing, and looking forward to seeing you at graduation.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
If there's someone you'd like to hear from, we want to know. Please send us topics of guests you'd like to see in future podcasts. As we continue this series, we hope we'll keep learning a bit more about the people in our community. Thanks so much for watching.